hopefully the meeting will keep going even if we disappear, and then Ira will try to get us back on as quickly as possible. Just one of those weeks. All right, let's get going. We're going to be on page 6 with Birchot HaShachar, blessings for a brand new day. We ask that if you're able, you please rise. Page 6. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan l'sechvi bin halavtin ben yom u'ben layla. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher asani b'tzalmo. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher asani Yisrael. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher asani b'chorim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam lokeach ivrim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam mabis sharomim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam matir asurim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam zokech kefufim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam lokaretz al hamayim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam she'asa li kol tzarki. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamechin mitzadei gaver. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam mazer shel bigura. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam motir shel b'tifara. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam natan li'ayif koach. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu l'cholam. Otneinu hayom u'achol yom lechanu chesed u'rachamim beinech v'nei Efraim v'tigmaleinu chasadim tovim. Baruch atah Adonai gomel chasadim tovim le'amo Yisrael. You may be seated, page 7. Yehi ratzon b'lefanech Adonai Elohim. לפיכך אנחנו חייבים. אשרינו מה טוב חכינו מנעים גואלנו מה יפה ירושתנו. אשרינו שאנחנו משכימים עריבים ערב הבוקר ואומרים פעמיים בכל יום שמע ישראל אדוני אלוהינו אדוני אחד. ברוך שם כבודו אתה עוד שלנו בא. קדש את שמך מקדישי שמך וקדש את שמך בעולמך וישועתה תרים את הגביע קרננו. ברוך אתה אדוני מקדש את שמך ברבימתהו אדוני אלוהינו בשמיים ובארץ. אתה עשית בעת ההיא שם לכולם ושובי את שותיכם לעיניכם אמר אדוני. Choose a rabbinic text to study between pages 9 and 12. אותיות של אמת בשתי רגליים בשל שקע ברגל אחד קלאסה לכולם. Page 12. יהי רצון מלפניך אדוני אלוהינו באלוהי אבותינו שתיתן חלקנו בתורתך ונהיה מתלמידיו של אהרון הכהן אוהב שלום ורודף שלום אוהב את הבריות ומקורבן לתורה. Please rise for Kaddish Rabbanan, page 13. יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה בעולמה דברה קידושי וימליך מלכותי וחייכון וביומכון ובחיי לכל בית ישראל בגלה ובזמן קריב יאמרו אמן. יהי שמי רבה מברך לעולם עולמי עלמיה. יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי דקודשה בריחו לעילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה תושבחתה ונחמתה ואמירן בעלמה ויאמרו אמן. על ישראל ועל רבנן ועל תלמידי הון ועל כל תלמידי הון ועל כל מען בעוסקים באורייתא די ואתרא עדין ודי בפועל אתר ואתר. יהי להון ולכון שלמה רבה חיינה וחיסתא ברחמין וחיים אריכין ובזונה רווחה ופורקנה אמין קדם ובהון ובשמיא ואמרו אמן. יהי שלמה רבה מן שמיא וחיים טובים עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו וברחמיו יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו amen. You may be seated. Psalm 30. Mizmor Shir Chanukat HaBayit LeDavid Aramim Echad Adonai Ki Litzani. Miskri Macholi Bedaktas Akivitas Venisimecha Lemanisemecha Babaloida Madonai Elohai Leolam Ojeka. Horner's Kaddish, page 15. Yitkada ve'yitkada Shmei Rabbah. Ve'olam ha'divra kirute ve'amlich malchute. Ve'chayichon u'vyomechon u'vechayid echol Beit Yisrael. Ba'gala u'vizman karhi v'imeru amen. Yehi Shmei Rabbah mevarach le'olam u'lamei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh. V'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal Shmei d'Kudeshah brichu. Ve'ela min kol birchata v'shirata. Tush b'chata v'nechemata. Tamiran be'alma v'imeru amen. Yehi shlama rabba min shmaya. V'chaim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imeru amen. Osei shalom b'mrama. Yaseh shalom. Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imeru amen. Please rise for Baruch Shamar, page 16. Baruch Shamar ve'yaolam baruch hu. Baruch Shamar ve'charonai. Yachid Chayot Ami Melech Meshubach V'Rej Magadol Baruch Atah Adonai Melech Melech Batishbachot. You may be seated, page 17. Adon Adonai Kiruv Yishma. Ki kol Elohim Himelinim Adonai Shemaim Asa Od Ve'adai Lefana Habot Minukama Habot Yedu Lefana Odu Captain Roman Rohem Adonai Eloheinu v'yishtachavu lahar kodsho Ki kadosh Adonai Eloheinu v'horach v'michaper Adon v'lo yashmi No, it's not that. Adonai tzvor Hashem Aboteach Bach Adonai Hashem Melech Yaneinu ve'yom koreinu Shiat Amecha Baruch Anachatecha Ki v'shem kodsham Anochi Bani b'chastecha v'tachti ageli v'yishuatecha Shir l'Adonai ki gamal alai Mizmor etodar l'nai kol haaretz. Page 20. Yivdu. Odevachu shemo ki tov Adonai le'olam chasta v'dor v'ador emunato yehi kavod Adonai le'olam yismach.
Yehi kavod Adonai
le'olam al shemayim. Ve'horach v'michaper b'melo yashvit ve'vel shiva v'lo yerkof ma'ato Adonai Hashem Melech Yaneinu ve'yom koreinu. Page 21. Ashrei Ashrei Yoshvei Beitecha Od Yadanu Chased Hashem Shechol Hashem Shemai L'Avtira L'Avira Zecher Atzacha Yadid Tehilat Halayda Perki V'Rech B'Basar Shem Kod Shalem B'Her V'Anach V'Varch Yom Yetzabed Olam Hallelujah 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 Nasir Adonai Adonai Shomer Kedim Yatzam Yamanai Did V'Derech Hashem Yavet Yimlach Hanai Le'olam Elahai Chzion L'Dor V'Ador Hallelujah, hallelujah. Page 23. Shabechi Yerushalayim et Adonai. Hallelujah, Elohai Tzion. Shabechi Yerushalayim et Adonai. Hallelujah, Elohai Tzion. Ki chizak brichei she'arayich. Ki chizak brichei she'arayich. Berach panayich bekirbech. Berach panayich bekirbech. Berach panayich bekirbech. Hallelujah, hallelujah, Elohai Tzion. Hallelujah, hallelujah, Elohai Tzion. Magid Vav Yaakov, who covered Mishpatav Israel, Asachem the Chol Goy, Mishpatim Vayrahum, hallelujah, 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 Bamramim, hallelujah. Nothing. Vayarem Keren Le'amot Yilalechot Hasitav Nivnei Yisrael Am Krovo hallelujah, hallelujah. Shir Naishir Chadash, page 25.
Smach Yisrael.
Meisor Malchechem Bezikim Nechbrechem Bechavlei Vazel Asot Mishpat Katuv Hadar Lechot Chasidav hallelujah, 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 Be'akodsho, hallelujah. Hallelujah, hallelujah, B'tzil Tzalhei Shama. Hallelujah, hallelujah, B'tzil Tzalhei Truha. Kodesh Shama Hallelujah. Hallelujah, hallelujah, Kodesh Shama Hallelujah. Hallelujah, hallelujah, Baruch Adonai.
Amen, amen.
Baruch Adonai Elohim Melech Yisrael Sinifad Devajo Baruch Shem Kvod Le'olam Dimech Kol Haaretz. Amen, amen. Please rise, page 26. Vayevarech David et Adonai. Ata Adonai Elohim Asher b'charta be'Avram ve'yatzeit tamar kastim v'sat l'shema Avraham u'matzat lebavo ne'eman lefanecha v'charot imo ha'brit ha'eretz ha'kanani. V'hayam b'kata lifneihem v'yirvu b'tochiyam b'yabasha v'edrodvei mishlaktim sod k'mo even b'mayim ozim v'yosha Adonai b'yom ha'hu. Page 27. Vayar Yisrael et Hayat Hagdala Asher Saladin Yitzrayim Vayruham et Adonai Vayimid Adonai Moshe Abdo As Yashir Moshe B'nei Yisrael Adonai Yishmel Kol Shechem. Adonai imloch le'olam ba'ed ki la'Adonai hamloch ha'mos shabagoyim v'alu moshim b'artzin u'shbodet ha'reisav v'yital Adonai hamloch v'yadonai le'melech kol ha'aretz v'yom ha'hu Adonai echad u'shemo echad. Page 29. ישתבח שמך לעד מלכנו אל המלך. שיש לך אוזן שם. ברכות והרעות ואתה בעד עולם, ברוך אתה אדוני המלך הגדול ותשבחות על ההודעות הנפלאות, הבוחר בשירי זמרה, מלך אלפי עולמים, יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה, בעלמא דברה קירותי בימלך מלכותי, וחייך ונביאך וחיי לכל בית ישראל, בגלה בזמן קריב ימרו אמן, יהי שמי רבה מברך ואלם עולמי עלמיה, יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא, ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי לקודשה בריחו, ואלמין כל יחתה ושירתה, תשבחתה ונחמתה, תאמירן בעלמא וימרו אמן. ברכו את אדוני המבורך.
ברוך
ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, יוצר אור ובריך חושך עושה שלום וברא את הכל. You may be seated. 5 lines down, page 30. המאיר לארץ לאדוני מלך. Baruch. Sehela tifach toreinu. כולם אהבים, כולם בררים, כולם גיבורים וכולם עושים בהם אוויר רצון קונם, וכולם פותחים מטביעים בקדושה וטהרה, ושיריו זמרם מברכים שבחים, ומפארים ומעריצים, מקדישים וממליכים, את שם האל המלך הגדול והנורא הקדוש הוא. וכולם מקבלים עליכם המלכות שמיים זה מזה, ונותנים רשות על זה להקדיש אותם בנחת רוח, ושרפה במתנה קדושה, כולם כאחד עונים ואומרים ביראה, קדוש, 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 אדוני צבאות, ולכל הארץ כבודו. באופנים וחיות הקודש, באשכרה מניסים ומטרפים, לעומתם משבחים ואומרים, ברוך אדוני ממקומו לאל ברוך. אור חדש על ציון תהיר, ונזכה כולנו מאור לאורו, ברוך אתה אדוני יוצר המאורות, דבר רבב תנוני אלוהינו. Page 32. אבינו לשלום מארבע כנפות הארץ, ותוליכנו כממיית לארצנו, כי על פה ישועת אתה, ואנו מכרתם מכל המלשון, וקרבתנו לשמך הגדול סלע באמת, להודות לך את באהבה, ברוך אתה אדוני, הבוחר בעמו ישראל באהבה. שמע ישראל, אדוני אלוהינו, אדוני אחד. ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם, ושבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך, ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם להות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך, ובשעריך בעין שמותיהם.
Adonai Elohechem emet.
Elohechem emet.
Adonai Elohechem emet, ויציב לכם בקיים וישר. אמת. ודור פדור קיים ושמו קיים, וכניסה נכון למלכותו ואמנת תולד קיים, ודברים חיים וקיימים. נאמנים, ישראל הראשונים אחרים. אמת שתה אדוני אלוהינו ואלוהי אבותינו, מלכנו מלך אבותינו, גואלנו גואל אבותינו, יוצרנו צור ישועתנו, פורינו מצילנו מעולם שמך, אלוהים זולתך, עזרת אבותינו אתה מעולם. Page 35. Again, Roshia. Tehillat el Elyon Baruch Barak Moshe b'nei Yisrael echanu shira b'simcha rabba ve'amru kol ha'am mi kamocha ba'alim Adonai mi kamocha nedar b'kodesh nora tehillat osef shira chadasha shibechogelim l'shimcha sfat hayam יחד כולם הודו והמליכו ויאמרו Adonai Elohim Haed. Please rise. Tzor Yisrael Koma be'eznat Yisrael Uvdei Kedomecha Yehuda be'Yisrael Kohaneinu Adonai Tzvahot Shemo Kedosh Yisrael Baruch Atah Adonai Gal Yisrael. We'll begin the Amidah together on page 36b, continuing together through the Kiddush on 37, and then silently through the rest of our Amidah. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Elohei Avotenu Elohei Abraham Elohei Yitzchak Elohei Yaakov Elohei Yitzchak Elohei Rivka Elohei Rachel Elohei Leah Ha'el HaGadol HaYivod HaGadol HaElyon Kol Melech Hasadim Tovim Vekonei Achol Vezokeh Chasdei Achol Ve'Yigohel Libnei Bnei Shem Leman Shemo Be'ahava Melech Ozer Poked Moshe Magen Baruch Atah Adonai Magen Avraham Poked Sarah Atah Givorei Adonai B'chaim Eitzim Atah Rak Le'Oshia Oridata Echad Yachayim B'Chesed B'chaim Eitzim B'Rachamim Rabim Tomech Nofim B'Rafech Odim Latir Asurim B'Kayom B'Nato V'Shenei Achad Nichamoch Ha'Bagevot U'Mitovecha Melech Mitzvayel Matzviach Yeshua V'Leman Atah Chayot Meitim Baruch Atah Adonai Mechayeh Meitim Mekadesh et Shimcha Ba'olam Kishem Shema K'dishim Oto B'Shmei Maro K'Katov V'Yadriach V'Karazel Zeh V'Yomar Kadosh, 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 Adonai Tzva'ot, Melech Haaretz Kevodo, Le'olam Baruch Yomeru. Baruch Kevodo Adonai B'mkomo, Divrei Kodesh Katuv Lemor. לדור הגונה גידולך, לצאת מצפים כניסת חנקיש, ושפחה אלוהים נקינו לימור של המלך, כי המלך הדור הקדוש אתה, ברוך אתה אדוני, האל הקדוש. If you're still praying the Amidah, feel free to continue. Otherwise, there's no Tachanun because it's the 8th day of Sivan. So we continue with Hatzi Kaddish on page 47. Yitzkata v'yitkadash shmei rabba v'halamati v'rakirutei v'yamlech malchutei v'chayechonu v'yamechonu v'chayerech v'beit Yisrael v'gala v'zman kariv v'yimeru amen Yehi shmei rabba mevarach v'elamalo me'amayha Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitvar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh v'yitadat v'yitaleh v'yitalel shmei l'kodesha b'richu v'el ha'min kol b'yachata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechmata Amen. You may be seated if you're standing. Ashrei is found on page 78. Ashrei, Ashrei, Veitecha, Odiravu, Pased, Hashem, Shkachlam, Shkachlam, Tiravi, Aramita. Zecha, Tehillat Naira Ber Pibi Barakabas Ashim Kochelenam Baer Banach Bakim Etaber Hallelujah Lamnatzech Misboda Vidyanaka Adonai Yishlach Ezrachem Akaru Banaflu Banaflu Kamnito Adonai Oshia Melchian Enavegam Korenu page 80 Uvaletzion Gol Shabbat Shabbat Behata Kadosh Shabbat Israel Vekarzel Zavimar Kadosh 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 Adonai Tzvaot Melchora Aretz Kevoto Batisa Eni Ruach Vesh Macharai Korash Gadol Baruch Kavod Adonai Mimekovon Adonai Korech Hatzi Chatetelek Madame Botech Yes. Yes. ויבטחו בחיירי שמך, כי לא עזבת ראשך אלונה, אלוני חפץ מן צדקו, יגדיל תורה והדיר. Kaddish Shalem, please rise, page 82. יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה, והלמדיו רק קירותיו וימלך מלכותיו, וחייכון וימכון וחיי לכל בית ישראל, וגלה בזמן קרבי וימרו אמן. יהי שמי רבה מברך, לעולם לא מעלמיה. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh v'yithadah v'yitaleh v'yitalel shmei l'kodesha b'richu le'el ha'amin kol b'yachata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechmata damir hande ama v'yimeru amen titkabal tzlaton avaton d'chol Yisrael kadam avon v'yishmaya v'yimeru amen Yehi Shlama Rabba Min Shmaya, V'chaim Aleinu V'Elko Yisrael, V'yimeru Amen. Ohosei Shalom Himromav, V'yasei Shalom Aleinu V'Elko Yisrael, V'yimeru Amen. Aleinu Leshabeach V'Adon HaKol, Atet Gedula Liyotzei Breshit, Tzedho Asanu Kigoyei Haratzon, Hello, Sam Hanuk, Mishmechot Adama, Shelo Sam Chelagenu Kahem, Egor Halenu Kechol Amhonam, Vanachnu Korim, Mishtachavim Umodim, Lifnei Melech, Alchei HaMachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Katu b'Toratech Adonai himhach le'olam ha'ed v'nehar v'haya Adonai le'melech al kol ha'aretz v'yom ha'hu yeh Adonai echad Oshemo Oshemo Echad Oshemo Echad. Warner Scottish, page 84. Yitzgadal v'yitzgadal Shmei Rabbah Ve'olamat Yivrach Yam Le'yam Chotei V'chayichon u'vyom echon u'v'chayed echol Beit Yisrael V'agala u'bizman kariv v'yimeru Amen. Yehi Shmei Rabbah mevarach le'olam l'omei Almaya Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal Shmei d'Kodesha bricho Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata Tushbechata v'nechmata Damiran ve'alma v'yimeru Amen. Yehi Shlama Rabba Min Shmaya V'chaim Aleinu V'Elko Yisrael V'yimeru Amen. Osei Shalom B'Mramav Huyasei Shalom Aleinu V'Elko Yisrael V'yimeru Amen. You may be seated if you wish. Psalm for Wednesday, middle of page 87. Hayom Yom Revi'i B'Shabbat Shelo Beit HaMikdash. Ninobai. Lechon heranen al Adonai nariel etzor yishehenu nekad natfana betoda bismirot narielo ki el gadol Adonai umelech gadol al kol Elohim. We continue to send our condolences to the family on the passing of Margaret Peg O'Neill. We're thinking of y'all. We also remember Miriam Schlofsky during the Shiva period. And during the Shloshim period, we remember Ronald Joseph, Ronnie Ratcliffe, and Lisa Starr Rosenstein. And this morning, May 19th, we recall the Yortzites of Beatrice, Bunny Kason, May Moskowitz, Leah Rosen, and Abraham Williams. And if there are additional names to add, feel free to do so at this time. Final Mourner Scottish is found back on page 84. Yitzgadal ve'yitzgadash Shmei Rabbah ve'olamat yivrach kirutei ve'omlik malchutei v'chayichon u'vyom echon u'v'chayed echol Beit Yisrael v'agala u'bizman kariv v'yimeru Amen. Yehi Shmei Rabbah mevarach le'olam l'omei Almaya Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh V'tadar, v'talev, v'talal, shmei dekudesha, briklo. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tush b'chata v'nechmata, damiran v'alma v'miru, amen. Yehi shlama rabba min shmaya, v'chaim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'miru, amen. Oseh shalom b'mrama, Uyase shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'meru, amen. Yasher koach to all y'all for helping us to make a minyan. We appreciate it, so people can say Kaddish among other things. Announcement-wise, not a lot. I'm going to be teaching Talmud in just a moment if you want to stick around. If you don't, no problem. I definitely won't be offended, but if you do want to stick around, that's fine. I think that's about it. So anyhow, we're wishing y'all a great morning. I'm going to take off my tefillin and teach a bit of Talmud. So if you want to stick around, great. If not, no problem. We hope y'all have a great day. Boker Tov, good morning.
Good morning, Boker Tov. Thank you, Rabbi.
Morning, Elsa.
Good morning, Bruce. How are you?
Good.
Good.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm going to go on my computer now. Have a great day, everyone. Bye.
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 If you want to see, feel free. I think that makes sense. Sorry, that's not it. Hopefully that's it. Okay. All right, Boker Tov. Good morning, everybody. We're going to be looking at the near end of Sanhedrin because that's where we're at. We're going to finish it in 4 weeks. So we're going to be looking at King David. So we're going to be at 107a, King David. All right, so we're going to talk about King David because why not? Rabbi Yehuda says that Rav says a person should never bring himself to undergo an ordeal, as David, king of Israel, brought himself to undergo an ordeal and he failed. So you should never ask for a test, which is, I think, just good idea. Don't ask for tests, because when you ask for tests, chances are you have a chance to fail them, and you probably will. David said, here's the ordeal that he brought upon himself. David said, before God, Master of the universe, for what reason does one say in prayer, God of Abraham, God of Isaac, and God of Jacob, but they do not say God of David? It's got a bit of an ego, huh? It's a little chutzpah to say, like, how come nobody says my name in the prayers? Maybe because you're not that important, right? So God says to David, look, I don't put your name in the prayers because they all underwent ordeals, but you have not done that before me, right? So all of them passed tests. I tested Isaac probably with the Akedah, or maybe that's testing Abraham. Who knows which ordeals it is, but he's tested all the forefathers, but David, he hasn't tested. So David doesn't get to be put in the prayer. So David says, well, then you should test me, examine me, subject me to an ordeal. As he says in the Psalms, examine me, Lord, and subject me to an ordeal. So they're using the Psalms, of course, traditionally written by David. So anything said in the Psalms, you can say David said. So they're using that and they're saying, look, David said, God, test me, God, I will pass, right? What a sucker. Don't ask for a test. So God said to him, okay, fine. You want to be tested? I'll test you. I will perform a matter for you that I did not perform for the patriarchs. As for them, I did not tell them the nature of the ordeal, but I'm going to give you a hint. I'm going to tell you that I will subject you to an ordeal involving a matter of forbidden relations. So he says, look, like Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, I just hit them with a test. It was a pop quiz. They didn't know what was coming. But you can study up, buddy, because you're going to have an ordeal. Your test is going to be forbidden sexual relations, adultery. So try not to commit it. That's your test, right? Easy peasy. David has it so easy. He knows the test is coming. He knows what the test is going to be. He's going to pass, right? Immediately it's written, and it came to pass one evening that David rose from his bed. So why does David get up from his bed? If we know Samuel, what do we know about this? He gets up to go and he sees on the roof, who's that over there? Beautiful naked woman, maybe Bathsheba, bathing or doing her hair or lounging on a chair or whatever you want to imagine, right? So he gets up from his bed. Oh, he's awake in the middle of the night. Rabbi Yehuda says, once David heard the nature of his ordeal, he sought to prevent himself from being lustful. So he transformed his nighttime bed into his daytime bed. So he would only have intercourse with his wives during the day, because maybe that would help. I don't know why he thinks that would help. It does not help. There's a halacha that escaped him. There was something he should have known that he didn't know. There's a small limb in man that you use in sexual intercourse. I'm sure y'all can figure out what limb that is. If you starve the limb, if you don't use it, it is satiated. But the more you satiate the limb, then it becomes starving, right? So the idea is, if you don't indulge your pleasures and engage in lots of lustful behavior, the limb actually will be satisfied. But the more you try to satiate and satisfy, the more you're going to want, right? You just become more and more lustful, because if you start engaging in intercourse, you keep wanting to have more and more and more intercourse. This is what they believe. Is this true? I don't know. I don't care, right? So anyways, he messes up. That's the important part. David messes up. He just keeps engaging in sex, thinking that that will keep him from having sex with somebody he's not supposed to, and he'll pass the test because he's not going to want to have it. But he's wrong, because he's actually making himself want to have it more. The verse states, he walked upon the roof of the king's house, and from the roof he saw a woman bathing, who's the woman Bathsheba. The woman was very fair to look upon. So he's on his roof at night. He has sex during the day, so no problem. He's not going to sleep with her that night because, okay. But, or maybe it's not night. I don't know. I think it is, though. Bathsheba was shampooing her hair behind a beehive, which concealed her from sight. So it's so random, just a beehive hanging out on the roof. She's doing her hair, but she's blocked by a beehive, so David can't see her. But wicked Satan, the evil inclination, came and appeared to David as a bird. So Satan comes and he's flying around like a bird, and David can't help himself. He's a hunter at heart. So he takes an arrow and he shoots, and he misses, and it hits the beehive. Do the bees come out and sting Bathsheba? No, the bees just fall down. Bathsheba, he can see her now. Ooh, he likes her, right? He sees her and he says, ooh, she's a good-looking woman shampooing on the roof behind that beehive. Immediately, it's written, David sent and inquired after the woman. David wants to know, who is that? And one said, is not this Bathsheba, the daughter of Eliam, the wife of Uriah the Hittite? And David sent messengers, and he took her, and she came to him, and he lay with her, for she was purified from her impurity. Then she goes back to her house. So whoops, right? David, don't commit adultery. Oh, don't worry, I won't. I'm changing my sexual habits. And then next thing you know, prowling around on the roof, there's a bird, shoots at the bird, misses, hits the beehive. Beehive falls out of the way. There's Bathsheba, so beautiful. Who is that? She's great. Take her. Oh, she's a married woman. I don't care. Sleep with her. Put her back in her house. Okay. And that is the meaning of that which is written. You have proved my heart. You have visited me in the night. You have tried me, but you find nothing. Let no presumptuous thought pass my lips. David said, oh, that a muzzle would have fallen upon the mouth of myself. He's going to say the mouth of the one who hates me, but that's himself. I would not have said anything like this, and I would have withstood the ordeal. See, David realizes he has failed the test already. He knew what the test was going to be. And then, try as he might, he fell right into the trap of failing the test. And then he's sad with himself, and he says, I'm such an idiot. I'm such an idiot. I should have kept my mouth shut, but I didn't. Poor David. Rava taught, what is the meaning of that which is written? To the leader of David, in the Lord I put my trust. How can you say to my soul, flee like a bird to your mountain? David said before the Holy One, blessed be God, master of the universe, pardon me for that sin with Bathsheba, so that wicked people will not say, the mountain that is among you, meaning me, David, was driven from the world due to a bird. What bird? Satan, right? Satan became like a bird. So the bird ended up making him fail. And so he says, God, forgive me. I really messed up, right? Is he saying I didn't mess up? No, he's saying he messed up. This is funny because if you read, I think it's in Shabbat, maybe. I think Shabbat, maybe Brachot, but Shabbat, where we read a long time ago, where they said, if you think David sinned, you're wrong. David didn't sin. David definitely didn't sin, right? But here, David seems to say, yeah, I sinned. I'm guilty. Ravatat, what is the meaning of that which is written? Against you, only you have I sinned and done what is evil in your eyes, that you are justified when you speak and right when you judge. There's the Psalms again. See how they keep using Psalms to speak for David? So what does that mean? David said before the Holy One, blessed be God, it is revealed and known before you that if I sought to suppress my evil inclination, I would have suppressed it. But I said, I will sin so that they will not say a servant overcame his master and withstood the ordeal, even though God said he would not. Oh, this is a little more chutzpah, isn't it? What did he say? He says, look, God, look, I only chose to sin because I didn't want you to be wrong. When you said I would fail the test, I needed to make sure that happened. So I didn't overcome my evil inclination, but the only reason I did that was so that they wouldn't say I'm greater than you, God. Is this a David we like? I don't know. I don't know about that. Ravatat, what is the meaning of that which is written? For I'm ready to stumble and my pain is always before me. Another psalm. Bathsheba, the daughter of Eliam, was designated as fit for David from the 6 days of creation, right? So as it turns out, from the 6 days of creation, God likes to pair people up. God says, like, you're going to marry so-and-so and you're going to be with so-and-so, right? We know God loves to play matchmaker. We see it elsewhere in the tradition. So as it turns out, David and Bathsheba are supposed to be together since the very beginning of the universe, right? So, and then they explain how it is. Tzela, right? Litzela is referring to Eve because it's from the Tzela of Adam, the helpmate, the rib, the first person. She was destined for Adam, and so too Bathsheba is destined for David, but she came to him through pain, right? And likewise, the school of Rabbi Ishmael teaches Bathsheba was designated for David, but he partook of her unripe, meaning he jumped the gun. He got so excited that he engaged with her before her husband was dead. That was a problem. He should have waited until the husband was dead. It was going to be his wife, but he jumped the gun. What a mistake, right? So he took of her unripe. And Rava taught, what is the meaning of that which is written? When I limped, they rejoiced and gathered. The wretched gathered themselves against me. And those whom I know not, they tore and did not cease. Damu. David said before the Holy One, blessed be God, Master of the universe, it's revealed and known before you that if my enemies were to tear my flesh, my blood would not flow to the ground because I fast so much. Right? So David is super pious and he's very upset with what he's done. And yet he still sinned. He jumped the gun. He was supposed to be with Bathsheba, but he jumped ahead. Why? Because his evil inclination, really his sexual impulse in this case, took over, whether he chose to let it, as he says in one of these, or whether he accidentally got caught in its clutches, depending on which David you want to look at, the more recent David or the one above. Who knows? But in any case, he's saying, look, like, I'm not a bad guy. Everybody makes mistakes. Moreover, David said, my enemies torment me to the extent that at the time when they're engaged in public study of halachas, of the 4 court-imposed death penalties, they interrupt their study. So they're studying what we're studying. They're studying Sanhedrin. And they say burning, stoning, blah, 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 blah. And they see David and they turn to him and they stop and they say, David, we were curious. One who engages in intercourse with a married woman, how should we kill him? These guys are jerks, right? They turn to the guy they know who has sinned and they say to him, hey, somebody who sins like you sinner, how do you think you should be punished to die, right? This is not very friendly, especially to the king of Israel. Do you think this conversation really happened? Maybe. Probably not, because you'd probably get dead if you said that to a king of Israel. But anyways, they say to this, how should you die? And I, David, say to them, somebody who does intercourse with a married woman before witnesses and with warning, you strangle them to death, but they get the world to come. So you kill them in this world, you should strangle me to death because I did this. But I do get heaven, the world to come, etc. But one who humiliates another before many people, has no share in the world to come. Oh, he zings them, right? They say to him, hey, sinner, how does one get punished for sinning like you? And David says, well, I'll tell you, they get punished in this way, but they do get the world to come. But let me tell y'all, you know, somebody like you who embarrasses somebody in front of everybody else, you know, they don't even get the world to come. They get nothing. God punishes them more severely than God would even punish me. So take that, you haters, right? That's what David says. Rabbi Yehuda says that Rav says, even during the time of his illness, he fulfilled the mitzvah of conjugal rights for 18 wives. That's impressive. As it is stated, I am weary with my groaning. Every night I speak in my bed. I melt away my couch with tears. They're saying even when he's tired and groaning, he still has sexual intercourse with his 18 wives. Boy, it is rough having 18 wives. But David's willing to make the sacrifice. And Rabbi Yehuda says that Rav says David sought to engage in idol worship during Absalom's coup. He has a son, Absalom, very, very bad. As it is stated, and it came to pass when David was at the top of the ascent where he would bow to God. And the top, the Rosh, means nothing other than idol worship, as it's stated. As for that image, its head, right, Reshe, was of fine gold. So David wants to do idol worship, maybe. And it's written, behold, Hushai the Archite came to meet him with his coat rent and earth upon his head. And Hushai said to David, shall they say a king like you is going to do idol worship? And David said to him, is it better that they say with a king like me, known to be righteous, that his son will kill him, right? He's stuck between a rock and a hard place. Do idol worship or get killed by his son? David continued referring to himself in the third person. It's preferable that he, meaning me, should engage in idol worship, and the name of heaven would not be desecrated in public through the murder of a righteous king in this manner, right? Better to do idol worship than to get murdered and have everybody say, there's no king anymore, everything's in disarray. Is he right? I don't know. Hushai said to him, what is the reason that you married a beautiful woman, the mother of Absalom? David said to him, with regard to a beautiful woman, the merciful one permitted marrying her. Hushai said to him, but you did not interpret the juxtaposed verses in Deuteronomy. Juxtaposed to the portion of the beautiful woman is the portion beginning, if a man has a stubborn and rebellious son. From that, you can learn anybody who marries a beautiful woman has a stubborn and rebellious son. Don't try to tell me if there's evidence for this or not, because we don't need to get into family drama here. But anyways, really interesting. And then I kind of just ended it there. Really, really interesting stuff. Really narrative based. We can see they're reading David into their own lives in many ways, right? So they imagine David debating halacha in the square. Suddenly David's not a king. What is David? David's a rabbi, right? David's not a king. I mean, he is a king, but really for their intents and purposes, David is a rabbi. He's a rabbi and he debates the 4 methods of dying via death penalty. He's just like them. Why do the rabbis want David to be just like them? Because it legitimizes their project, right? If David is talking about this stuff, then of course we should be. So just running you through again what we just did very quickly. We started with King David. King David asked for a test. King David's mad. His name's not in the Amidah. We say, thank you, Isaac, Abraham, Jacob. We don't say David. So David said, I want to be in the list. Put me in the list. And God said, look, you only get to make the list if you pass the test. And David said, test me, God. And through the Psalms, they're having all these conversations. And God says, okay, I'll test you. I'm going to give you a hint, a heads up. This is how the test is going to be. Try not to fail it. It's going to be sexual relations that are forbidden. Don't break those relations. Don't do it. And David says, sure. He makes a plan. He's only going to have sex in the morning. I guess that's going to help. But it doesn't help because as it turns out, the small limb in a man, the more you starve it, the more satiated it gets. The more you satiate it, the more starved it gets. So the more he would engage in sex, the more he wanted to have more sex. So that's a problem. So then he's hanging out on the roof one day, and there's a beehive. Don't know why. And behind the beehive is Bathsheba shampooing her hair. And then Satan becomes a bird and flies in front of the beehive. And David can't help himself. He shoots his bow and arrow. The arrow misses the bird because it's Satan. He's not going to get hit. Satan plans this, and it hits the beehive. The beehive falls out of the way, I guess. And then Bathsheba's there, and David says, hot mama. He takes her. He engages with her sexually. He puts her back in her house. Big problem. She's still married to Uriah, who's still alive. David just committed adultery, right? Punishable by death. Now David feels bad because he realizes he had sinned, and he says, why is my stupid mouth always talking? I should keep my mouth shut sometimes, more or less, right? So then he also says, oi, if not for that bird, this mountain wouldn't have fallen. So, Satan's fault, right? First, my fault, then Satan's fault. Then he says, actually, it might be my fault, but I should be praised because the only reason I did it was to make sure you knew God was going to be right, right? So he has three different ways of rationalizing it, like completely my fault, not exactly my fault, really not my fault at all, right? Depending on which one you want. All of these are possible. Then he says, then they say, Bathsheba, she wasn't a problem for him to engage with, except that he did it too early. It was going to be one of his 18 wives, just not yet, soon. But he jumped the gun, and so what a mistake. But he feels bad about it. He fasts all the time. He gets berated in the study hall. People make fun of him, so he pushes back, right? And then finally, he was really, really trying to be good, but he struggled. Like, he struggled in terms of having to engage in all that intercourse with all those women. He also struggled with idol worship when it came to Absalom. Should he let his son kill him, or should he worship idols, right? Which one should he do? And he almost goes to worship idols, and Hushai says to him, what are you doing? You can't worship idols. You're a king of Israel. And he says, can I let myself be killed as a king of Israel, right? And then Hushai says, this is all a big problem because you weren't very thoughtful when you married. You shouldn't have married such a beautiful woman. And he says, what are you talking about? And he says, well, you see, a beautiful woman leads to having children who are stubborn and rebellious. So if you were a little more thoughtful, David, it's a little past that at this point because Absalom's already going around causing trouble. But if you'd been more thoughtful, you wouldn't have married that beautiful woman. You wouldn't have had a rebellious son. You wouldn't have to choose between idol worship and being murdered, right? So kind of, if there's a thread in here, and I like King David, believe me, part of my Hebrew name is David. So I like King David fine. But part of the thread in here, I would say, is that David has this bad habit of jumping before thinking, right? He acts before he's really considered all the possibilities, and then he pays a price. And he continually does this in the story. And then the Talmud just emphasizes it beyond and shows that while David means well, he often doesn't have the foresight and planning necessary to always come through successful. He's good about fixing the problems after. Kudos to him on that, but he's bad about avoiding the problems in the first place. Like, he's not so smart about I could avoid this problem if I just didn't do X, Y, Z. Even when he's warned, he can't help himself. He's just, he's a strong individual, but he has trouble stopping himself. Unless you want to read the one where it says, well, he knew God had to be right, so then he did it, but otherwise he wouldn't have done it. Yeah, Phil doesn't like that, I can see. But yeah, otherwise I would say David is David's worst enemy in terms of stumbling into problems, but he's his best friend in terms of getting out of them later and doing tshuva. So, double-edged sword. On the one hand, bad on him for constantly running into problems. On the other hand, good on him for being able to reason his way out later using the Psalms. Really, really creative way. We can see how the sages tell the story by taking David's authentic words, by using the Psalms, creating arguments and conversations. They put David into the role of rabbi to legitimize their project. And also they just go through all sorts of curious ideas. If David did sin, why did it happen? This might also be a criticism of people indulging sexually in ways they shouldn't be, right? It might be, especially that starving the small limb and stuff. We know the rabbis struggle often, at least according to the Talmud, with their sexual urges. It keeps coming back in here. I don't know. And then there's little wisdom, like do we know that if you marry a beautiful woman, you have rebellious children? I don't know. Did they really believe that? Are they having fun at somebody's expense? Not clear. But I do think it's a great section. I think as a side part to the story of David, it really fleshes him out in fun ways, makes him very human. This is a very different David from the one when they say David didn't sin. David, according to this, definitely sinned. Doesn't mean that we write him off as a loser. It just means that he probably sinned. They're not even debating, did he actually sleep with Bathsheba here? Everybody agrees that he did. So, okay. Anyways, thoughts, comments, questions? Yes, I'm looking around here. I'm looking around there. Yeah. Oh, you're very, very dark, Bob. Yeah.
Yeah, I've always been really dark. So it's good to be king, right? I mean, 18 wives. That's. But the thing that I thought was kind of interesting was, well, the thing is that with Bathsheba, you sin because she was unripe. And what they're saying, look, I should have had her husband killed before I had sex with her and everything, and then things would have been okay. It doesn't, that point doesn't quite gel with me in terms of the kind of arguments that are being made in the thing. And the other thing that I found a little unconvincing about this part is that this section is the test that, first of all, it seems to me, I mean, all of the patriarchs had issues of finding their identity. But it seems to me that Abraham was the only one that was really in the text put to the test. The other people lived lives, and that they had the issues that confront people in the course of their lives, and they had to resolve them. But Abraham is put to the test, and the kind of test that he had to deal with was a test that came directly from God, and that it involved the life of his son. This kind of test that David is dealing with, is a test that we, to a certain extent, to lead a good life, a decent life, to be, well, I guess he doesn't have to be faithful to his, or maybe he does have to be faithful to all 18 of his wives. I don't know, but that's stuff that you deal in the course of your life. You have these issues that come up. It's not the same kind of test, really, is it?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think it's up to interpretation. I think you might be right. I also was pondering, like, what test, like maybe Jacob wrestling the angel or reconciling with his brother, but also, yeah, like what's an explicit test versus just a part of life? Or maybe the idea of test even here is more like a real struggle that they've had to deal with, which we know Isaac has to deal with this struggle, and Abraham does, and Jacob does. And maybe at this point, I don't know, it's funny because I think David definitely has his fair share of struggles, even with Goliath and stuff. But yeah, I don't know. I think they want to make whatever point they want to make. And so they're going to say, I'm sure they had something in mind, but I don't know what tests or ordeals they meant. Yeah. Great. Anybody else? All right. Oh, are y'all frozen? Oh, no. Okay, great. Perfect. Okay. Well, we appreciate y'all joining us for this. We only have 3 more weeks. I think next week is Noah. I think the week after that is Sodom and Gomorrah. And then the last week will be the final week, concluding the book. So we'll be excited for y'all to join us for those, if you can, on the next 3 Wednesdays, I do believe. Otherwise, we're wishing y'all a great day. And my advice would be, don't go asking for tests from God unless you're pretty sure you're going to pass them. Just seems like good advice in general. So perfect. See y'all.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right.
But does it start to